Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
In most countries of the world, Porte means door. United Porte Custom Doors, located in the Scottsdale Airport Design District, is now open with over 40,000 European doors, all in stock, ready for delivery, and at wholesale prices. Designers, contractors, builders, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Porte, Porte. Stop by to see and feel the quality at United Porte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up. I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code YEAR to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code YEAR for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code YEAR for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM. Wherever you go, take us along. Listen to our live stream on our free Fanatic app. Download it today.
Welcome to Beat the Book, right here on 1580 The Fanatic, broadcasting from the Harmon Solar Studios in sunny uptown Scottsdale. I'm Keon Rose, and alongside me is our betting expert, Dylan Cohen. And boy, do we have a show for you. There's going to be a lot of football. There's going to be potentially a lot of arguing about football if you like that kind of thing. And I have the feeling, just a hunch, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're on the text line, 888-368, some of you have lent us your ear on this before. We're talking about the college football playoff. We've got issues with the committee. I've got issues with the committee. Dylan's got issues with the committee. We're going to get to that, and we want to hear what you think as well. We've also got Thursday night football right here on 1580 The Fanatic. The Packers, the Lions, NFC North divisional rivalry going down tonight. The great Packers defense going up against that fantastic Detroit Lions offense. Who's going to have the win? We'll talk about that a little bit too. The Suns are back in action. We'll touch on that as well. And Dylan will wrap up the show by giving you his picks for today. But before we get to any and all of those things, Dylan, who powers the show?
We are powered by Sport Trade. And make sure you search Sport Trade on your smartphone, get that app downloaded, and use promo code 1580 to take advantage of their 10% cashback promotion on new account signups. And I mean, there was a number of things that happened within the sports world last night. Normally first segment, we would be recapping some of those things, but instead we wanted to give some space for a really important conversation that needs to be had because, at least for right now, what Keon and I absolutely agree on is that there's an injustice that is in the works. And what I am referencing right now, it is the College Football Playoff Committee's recent rankings that they just put out in advance of championship week, where we're getting all the different conference championship games. So, obviously this is just another update on how they see the lay of the land right now. It's not anything finalized or set in stone, But as of this week, before we start these championship games, we have our ASU Sun Devils, the highest ranked team in the Big 12, finding themselves ranked at number 15 in the college football playoff rankings. They moved up one whole spot after winning the Territorial Cup and advancing to the Big 12 championship game. Now, there's a number of sources of just discontent, I guess is what you can call it, with how the rankings are set. There's a number of teams ranked above ASU that does not feel very right, and I think that's something that Keon and I do agree on. Where Keon and I seem to kind of differentiate a bit is, I guess, kind of more the philosophy, the unwritten politics / rules, so to speak, of how traditionally CFP rankings have worked and how the power structure, so to speak, is laid out when you're looking at the teams to try and rank in the college football playoff. And to the CFP's credit, this is the first year where we've got 12 teams. And we know from years past, you're just never going to get it 100% right. Someone at the end of the day is getting the short end of the stick. Some school is going to get really disappointed.
And I always bring up this example. The NCAA tournament is a 68-team tournament. And there is some team that is 69, 70, crying that they should have gotten a chance to get in. And sometimes they're right. But like, no matter how big you expand a tournament to, the teams on the fringes, there are always going to be teams that are outside that have an argument to be inside. And there are teams that are inside you could argue back out.
And, in this case, with ASU being ranked at 15 and the college football playoff only having 12 spots, obviously there's going to be some teams within this 15 to 13 range that are going to be left out. I don't think anyone can possibly imagine, if ASU ends up winning the Big 12, that there's some world that we live in where the Big 12 champion is just going to be completely excluded from this 12-team playoff. I'm not so much concerned about that. But, historically, when you think about the Big 12 as a conference among the Power 4 conferences and their ultimate standing, and with the quality of the competition that makes up that conference, you would think that whoever wins the Big 12 championship would be considered among perhaps those top 4 teams that are ultimately going to get a bye in the first round, and then also, host a playoff game themselves. And that's where Keon and I start to kind of differ on this a bit, because right now, the way that things are currently ranked in the top 4 of the actual rankings, it's Oregon, then Texas, then Penn State, then Notre Dame. When it comes to projecting who's going to get those top 4 spots that get that bye in that first round, what seems to be the popular opinion at the moment is that it should be Oregon, Texas, SMU from the ACC, and then Boise State slotting in that 4th spot, being the champion of the Mountain West Conference. So where I guess
that's just a projection.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, again, nothing is set in stone. However, and this is ironic, we discovered this just before we got on the show here. For all my degenerate gamblers out there is a betting market on this. You do not have to doubt that. If you go to FanDuel, there's a little section that says CFB Playoff, and you can actually place a wager right now on who the top 4 teams are going to be. And the wager itself requires you to pick the exact order. It's not just like, here's a group of 4.
Yeah, you can't take, Oregon, Texas, and then maybe you've got Notre Dame at 3, and then, the Penn State at 4, for instance, or something like that. And then like it's if you're wrong about Penn State being there, or you're wrong about Notre Dame being there, or even Texas, if Texas doesn't wind up being 2 for whatever reason, because they've got to play a team they've already lost to in their in their conference championship game. So like that is where things are going to get a little fuzzy if you're going to make that bet.
So, right now, the way that the pricing on this market is set, the most likely outcome, which is paying 6-1 right now, would be Oregon to get that top spot at number 1, Texas to come in at number 2, SMU from the ACC to be number 3, and then Boise State to be number 4. And if that were the actual results of this, then what that means is the champion from the Mountain West Conference and also the champion from the Atlantic Coast Conference is exceeding the champion of the Big 12. And I just cannot help but think about, what world do we live in where the Big 12 as a conference, take the teams out of it, just focus. And when I say take the teams, take the immediate teams that are leading those respective conferences. Just think about the conferences in general. Think about the power structure, the politics, and just how long things have been the way they are. In what world do we live in where the Big 12 champion is weighted less than the Mountain West Conference champion and the ACC champion? And don't get me wrong. I mean, ACC champions of the past, there's been some really strong ones. Dabo Swinney and Clemson, they've had some amazing teams in the past. So,
but also amazing teams that won weak conferences. Like there have been years where the ACC was not any good, but you knew that Clemson was good. They showed up every week and showed you they were good.
Well, and then, obviously in the case of this year, the team that is leading that conference is a newcomer that isn't even really from the region that historically, encompasses the ACC.
Yeah, and they're a former Group of 5 team.
That is from Texas, being, a stronghold of a number of elite football teams in the country. But with that being said, there's a big part of me that, being a native of this great state of Arizona and being a champion of our residents here and our people and our Sun Devil faithful, I just cannot help but feel like this is an extension of the Arizona sports bias feeding into the CFP's rationale. Because if Colorado was the champion of the Big 12, if K-State was the champion of the Big 12, I mean, I personally think if BYU even was the champion of the Big 12, I know you maybe don't agree with that, but
I don't, just because I've seen BYU get the hose before. Like BYU football is not a school that brand wise is loved by these committees. Like, so I know for maybe the way they've been ranked in the past, good BYU teams didn't quite get the level of love and attention that you would think. And they had players like Zach Wilson and like guys that you could market.
My point is that there are other teams that could potentially be the face of this conference and be the champion. And I just don't think we're having this conversation of, oh yeah, Boise State is 4, or oh yeah, SMU is ahead of them in this group of 4.
For me, I think it's Colorado. Like Kansas State, if it were Kansas State, I don't think that anybody thinks Kansas State goes up against Boise State and beats them. I like just the way that Kansas State plays football. It's just so limited, it feels like, and very one-dimensional. And obviously, like I don't want to say they got exposed because they were kind of exposed before, but they got absolutely the way they play football got absolutely taken advantage of by the Sun Devils, and we were able to see that from K-State. So I don't know. Like, I think that this is just a year where Boise State is flying high. They're in a conference that's obviously not as strong as any Power 4 conference, but they are pounding most of their opponents into powder. And I think the notable thing here is that they've got a Heisman Trophy candidate on the team. That I think is, like, when you think of how good is that team, you have to think of Ashton Jeanty. And if there's any idea that you think that Boise State would beat ASU, it's because you are overlooking Leavitt and you are overlooking Scadaboo. But I don't think that this is I don't think that this is them with an axe to grind specifically against an Arizona team. I don't know that it's that personal in this instance.
But that's the thing about the Arizona sports bias is it's never blatantly intentional. It is subliminal. It's completely out of sight, out of mind. There's just this unspoken, just sort of subtle, always being there notion that, oh, it's Arizona. Why would we ever, put them in, with this group? And again, I don't think anyone is pointing their fingers, literally saying that. I just think that is what seems to happen time and time and time again when you have a team out of this state that is performing extremely well. And now it's time to, talk about them, among the best of the best. And then they just get left out. And I mean, this argument spreads across a number of different sports.
And this like brings me to like one of the many axes I have to grind against this committee is something that they always talk about not doing, and then they do it. And that's we don't use last year's results it doesn't impact this year, but it clearly does. Teams that have momentum from last year get more attention going into the following year. And I think one thing that's really hurting ASU in particular this year is that they came out of nowhere. A lot of the schools that kind of came out of nowhere are being, I think, overlooked by this committee. Teams that had momentum from a year ago, they're getting a little bit more shine. Like Indiana being behind Ohio State after that embarrassing loss to Michigan is insane to me. But Indiana's a little bit more out of nowhere than Ohio State. So they're behind. Like, I think that's one thing this committee does that's just terrible. Like, it's inconsistent. They're not supposed to do it. And they do it all the time. They've been doing it since the playoff was 4 teams. And I've never liked it.
Well, recently, the commissioner of the Big 12, Brett Yormark, came out, made a statement, and we can all see what is kind of in the works right now. And I do believe that you need to start to be proactive about trying to control the narrative of this. Because what Brett Yormark came out and said was the selection committee continues to show time and time again that they are paying attention to logos versus resumes. And I look at a team like Boise State. They have a phenomenal win on their schedule. Like, don't get me wrong. Or I'm sorry, not phenomenal win. They actually have a phenomenal loss on their schedule.
It's a close loss. And of course, on their schedule, also 2 former Pac-12 teams that they just ran right through. Like, they weren't there. Those things I think are also helping them a little bit.
I cannot help but look at this schedule. And 2 weeks ago, I mean, they played at Wyoming, a team that finished 2-9 in their conference, right towards the bottom. Boise State was tied with these guys at halftime. They were tied going into the fourth quarter, and they barely managed to escape alive. They won by 4 points. The final score was 17-13 in that game. And I know they're undefeated in their conference. I know they've done great things. They deserve to be in that 12-team playoff. But I look at the rest of their schedule and the rest of their conference. And I'm sure this is an argument that comes up every single year, probably within the CFP, just different contexts, different teams, but it's probably the same, is how do you weigh one team that goes undefeated in their weak conference, shows a very good performance against who we consider to be the absolute best team in the country, versus another team that performed extremely well in their conference, maybe didn't play one team that was nearly as good as the team that Boise State played, but they played a larger quantity of higher quality opponents. So it's kind of like, does that one game where they barely lost in Oregon by 3 outweigh all these ranked wins that ASU has, let alone, the other wins that they have against the other Power 4 teams that make up their conference, where within the Big 12, and this is what we were talking about before the show, the Big 12 collectively has better talent.
It's a better conference. Like, I don't think that you have an argument there. Like, it's a better conference. The Big 12, the athletic profile of this conference is primarily high-level 3 stars, 4-star, 5-star athletes. You have more of those here than you do in the Mountain West. Now, you have more this year, I think, than most years because of Washington State and because of Oregon State being part of the Mountain West, because there is no Pac-2 just yet. So, like, you've kind of roped these former Pac-12 teams in there that I think is making Boise State's argument probably stronger than it would have been a year ago. Had they had this year last year, maybe they're not even considered the way that they are. But yeah, I mean, we've had this before. 2021, Cincinnati makes the college football playoff. They were undefeated in the AAC. They weren't in the Big 12 yet. And being undefeated in the AAC, you go, okay, like, this is a team that's dominated all year long. They've played great games. They've had like their good quality wins against like good opponents, but nothing high level. How do you slot them in there? And I think ultimately, like, they ended up playing Alabama. They were the 4 seed. They played Alabama the 1. They got beaten 28-7. Got away from them in the second half because the talent kind of overwhelmed them in the second half. But like, it's always going to be this tough, weird, subjective thing that you're trying to do to project how a team is going to play against opponents, the quality of which they haven't played all year.
Now, if you're someone that is hopeful about ASU's prospects and hopeful that the CFP committee over the course of the next week may come to their senses and make some better judgment and actually put ASU in that top 4, there is a line on FanDuel right now where you can take Oregon to be that top team, Texas to be the second team, Boise State to be the third team, meaning SMU loses to Clemson, and ASU sneaking in as that fourth team. That is actually the 5th ranked most likely outcome. That is paying 11-1 right now. And, Keon and I were arguing quite a bit about this before we got on. I was not familiar with the scenario of, well, Clemson could actually win, and then both Boise State and ASU can
are in that top 4, and ASU would get a bye week. I really wish that ASU didn't lose that game to Texas Tech. Like, that hurts. And you could say it was earlier, they didn't have everything together. That's your resume. Whether fair or not fair, because everybody gets that. Sometimes you get an early season win that helps your resume. Sometimes you have an early season loss that when you look back on it, you go, I shouldn't have lost that one. Alabama wishes they had that Vanderbilt game back. You can't take it back. The ASU lost a game to Texas Tech that's hurting them more than I think anybody realizes, just because if that game is a W and they lost that game by 8, it was very close. They had an opportunity to pull that one off. They win that game. This is not even a conversation we're having. Therefore, like that's just what it is. But because they have that loss, and it's such a weird, like, non-ranked, you kind of struggled through that entire game loss,
you just can't get a pass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different than the Cincinnati game where you can go, okay, Levitt wasn't there. We'll give you one pass.
You get the pass for that a little bit.
Right.
And even then with the Cincinnati game, like, Cincinnati's just genuinely not ranked. And when you look at what Cincinnati's done this year, like, it hasn't been bad, but, like, Cincinnati's just been the kind of, like, middle of the pack team. So even without Levitt, you're like, I like a team that is getting a bye week. When you boat race that team, like, and I don't know that Boise State could either. Like, without if you took their starting quarterback away, I have no idea. And that's where it gets to be this weird minutia thing where you're kind of like trying to figure out what the rules are. And my issue with the committee is that they're so inconsistent with how they apply strength of schedule versus strength of record, where your strength of record is just the teams you've beaten that are great. Like, where are they ranked, versus your strength of schedule, which for Boise State would include the loss to Oregon, but that's a different ranking. If you have a tough schedule, but you lose the ranked games, that's different than us saying we're going to put more weight on the games that you have actually won. If that's the case, then yeah, you put ASU above Boise State. You don't even think about it. But the blurriness of how they're applying certain metrics, I hate it. I think that they need something that's very concrete, where it's just like in the NFL, if you win your division, this is what happens. If 2 teams are tied in the division, well, we're going to look at your strength of schedule, and then we're going to look at, your points for you, like how many points have you outscored teams by? Like, there has to be some metric that every year you can apply it 2 times in a row and get the same result.
And what you have just outlined is essentially why I believe the CFP in a lot of respects just functions very akin to like a criminal organization, because they are going to follow whatever rules they want. They'll tell you that they're going to do one thing, then they're going to do another. They're going to give you zero transparency about how it's going to, get done. And then you can huff and puff and, cry and scream all you want. And it's just like not going to change anything to the point where, we saw last year, the governor of Florida, wanted to sue them over Florida State, being left out. And that was a whole other thing that had its whole, own other merits. But in this case, it's just very unfortunate that, the system, it just still doesn't feel like we're addressing the problems. We know what the problems are, and then we say we're going to address them in the system, and then they just expand it to 12 and then just keep perpetuating all the same things that upset everyone.
And the expansion to 12, and the reason why the expansion to 12 appeased a lot of people, and I don't think it should have. This was never about making everybody happy. They have not changed the way that they've operated. They were never going to change the way that they operated. They were doing this because it's more money. The College Football Playoff Committee is a corporation. It is a business that is partnered with ESPN. I'm sorry. Are there no biases there? Like, of course there is. And the bias is money. It's always going to be money.
And it's anti-Arizona.
And it's just like, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. Like, to me, I don't think the committee cares. Like, I don't think the committee's focused on any one school enough to necessarily give a damn, honestly. Like, I think for them, this is just a matter of, like, if we can sit there and like drum up controversy even to a degree, that helps them too. Like, the amount of conversation that they had last year with Florida State getting left out in the cold because their quarterback had a broken leg. So Texas wins their championship, the same Big 12 championship. They get in, Florida State doesn't get in, and there's a whole argument and fuss about it. That was good for them. That was good for ratings. People watch the college football playoff rankings, and the ratings were high for the rankings.
It was the right move in hindsight, because Florida State went on to play a bowl game. I think it was against Georgia. They got absolutely destroyed because they didn't have, a starting quarterback there. So that's where, to me, the situation differs, because I just think the team that could get the short end of the stick in the ASU Sun Devils could absolutely beat a Boise State team. And maybe that's where
they could. And I'm not saying that they can't. What I'm saying is you don't know that. Like, that's not a cut and dry. I think that, ASU and Boise State strap it up today. ASU's definitely winning. I don't know that. I don't think anybody knows that. I don't think that those teams are that far apart, because Boise State is actually good. Like, that's the thing that you can't overlook. Boise State's not a national brand. Like, this is not a team that's got,
Wyoming almost beat them 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And the thing is, when they had their bad game, they won. You had your bad game against Texas Tech, you lost it. Like, that to me, like, I'm sorry, as it's whether it's fair or not, I don't think
Boise State would beat Texas Tech.
Yes, they would. They would run through Texas Tech. Yes, they would. They would.
Their conference is weak.
It might be. They would still beat Texas Tech to death. It's just in a one-off game. I think in a schedule, you have to play this team week, and then the next team the next week, and then this next team the next week. Like, yeah, in a schedule, I don't know how Boise State hangs in a Big 12 schedule. I have no idea. But in a one-off, no, I don't think they're losing to Texas Tech. It's just like, this is not one of those. Boise State's not one of those teams that's just being inflated just because of Ashton Jeanty. He's helping a lot. Having a Heisman Trophy candidate is helping a lot. A guy that's going to win that award potentially, having done things that on a football field that are, quite frankly, unheard of. I think that's helping them a lot. But this is not a Boise State team that has struggled through this bad schedule. For the most part, they have ripped teams apart. And did they play that Wyoming game in Wyoming?
They did.
Yeah. It's hard to go into Laramie and win. Like, I think ASU get that game in ASU. That helps. That helps. I don't know that the results.
Texas Tech finished 8-4 with wins over Iowa State and ASU. And I do not see Ashton Jeanty in that cupcake of a conference that he's been running through coming into the Big 12 and having the same level of success. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. And like, they have the win over ASU is big, and the win over Iowa State is big, because those are your conference champions. But like that, like, to me, and this is the problem with trying to argue it this way. That does not prove that Boise State couldn't do it. And because we don't have any definitive on-field evidence of this, you're kind of doing this subjective dance. And I don't envy what the committee has to do at all. Like, this is not an easy thing to do. But ultimately, when you're looking at a school that's beating people by like an average of like 20, 25 points, and you're like, yeah, the conference is weak, but they're standing so far above the conference. This isn't even like Cincinnati, because they're beating these teams worse than Cincinnati was when they were undefeated and made the college football playoff like 3 years ago.
I think we're a little late for a break here.
We're potentially very late for a break. I took my eye off the clock. I'm normally much better about that. So yeah, we're going to come back and I guess we just have to put a bow on this conversation right here because we've got NFL football to talk about, man. So we'll get to that coming up on the other side. You're listening to Beat the Book right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
At Diamond Dave's Desert Wholesale Diamonds,
we offer incredible diamonds, both mined and cultivated, all at amazingly low prices.
Check out these cultivated lab-grown diamond earrings.
2 carats total weight, collection color and lab-grown, only $25.90.
And she'd love this amazing tennis bracelet in natural mined.
4 carats total weight in yellow or white gold, only $39.90.
And how about this diamond chain in cultivated?
12.5 carats total weight, collection color and lab-grown, only $79.90.
And last but not least, especially this year, 1.5 carat floating diamond pendant.
Collection color and lab grown, only $9.90.
Call, email, or message us for an in-person appointment.
Or sit back and relax for free FedEx shipping anywhere in the USA.
Call Diamond Dave at 480-397-2450. That's 480-397-2450. Or follow him on Instagram at Diamond Dave Cantor. That's at Diamond Dave, Kantor.
Stirring fiber, exercising, frequent trips to the store for more laxatives and fiber. Sounds like your constipation with belly pain is a lot to manage. But if your symptoms that keep coming back are signs of irritable bowel syndrome with constipation or IBS-C, ask your doctor how Linzess can help you get ahead of it. Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
Accomplishing goals is hard, but when your goal is to learn a new language, Babbel makes it easy. Babbel is designed with you in mind. From expert-created lessons to conversational video units and even live classes, you can personalize your Babbel experience to be exactly what you need to really learn a new language more easily. Go ahead, set a goal for yourself. Accomplish it with Babbel. Try Babbel for free. Go to BABBEL.com. That's Babbel.com.
Let's say you've got questions. You're looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Well, Harmon Solar has the answers. Hi, I'm Jeffrey O'Brien, and listen, there's a couple of ways you can go here. One, visit harmonsolar.com, browse around, because right across the page, they got links to all sorts of great information, like frequently asked questions, equipment, tax credits, even testimonials. Or just give them a call, 800-281-3189. Ask them directly. They'd love to hear from you. That's 800-281-3189. Or just go to harmonsolar.com.
1580 The Fanatic. And at 1580thefanatic.com. Your home for sports.
We're back, and we're going to try and keep this thing moving. We could talk college football for another hour. We did before the show, and we just don't have time for that today. We've got to move along. We've got a lot of really good games on today, NBA and, of course, NFL, and that's where we're going to go next. Lions versus Packers tonight, and take a look at what you're thinking, Dylan, because there's some props that you like in this game.
Yeah, a number of different props here. First and foremost, this has to be like the best Thursday night football game of the season. I can't think of.
We've had it. This is like the first year where I can think of where if I think of the Thursday night football games, there've been a few good ones.
I mean, I don't know, just on paper,
that Browns Steelers one was pretty good.
I mean, both of these teams have not lost in like a really long time. I mean, if you're the Packers, they lost to the Lions like exactly a little bit over a month ago. On a 3-game win streak, but obviously 9-3 record. Lions just like flat out have not lost like in the last like 2 months, not since what was it? It was like week 2, something along the lines of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, just really compelling matchup in general. And you will be able to catch that here on 1580 The Fanatic. So definitely one of the better broadcasts to check out. But when we're looking at this game and, we're trying to think about who we want to bet on and, how we're going to ultimately make money on it, go ahead and check out the Beat the Book website. You can get there through following me on Instagram. The tag is at Beat the Book Fanatic, all spelled out. You just hit the link in the bio, and that'll take you right to the Beat the Book page where the picks get posted. You can also visit 1580thefanatic.com, click on the Beat the Book with Dylan Cohen logo. That'll take you right to the same place. And you'll see right up there in the top 2 picks of the day. My pick in this one is for the Detroit Lions. To me, this is just right now the absolute best team in the NFL. And to be able to get them on the money line, minus 178 right now, not the worst price. I'm almost a little shocked that they're not favored by more. They did already defeat the Packers, as I just mentioned. That was about a month ago. That game was in Green Bay, and the Lions won by 10 points. So now they're at home. They've just continued to win since then, and the spread is all the way down to 3. So, if you are someone that doesn't really like the price on the money line and you prefer a little bit more juice, I would go ahead and endorse taking them on the spread at 3. I think it's likely they probably win this one by a touchdown. Keon, do you see this potentially going in the Packers' favor here, or is this really just all Lions?
I think the Lions are going to win the game, but I do think the Packers are going to be competitive tonight. Like their offense has been kind of inconsistent, but when it's on, it's on. And I think the bigger part there with the Packers is that defense. It's a really good defense. It's an incredible secondary, and it's just hard to put the ball over the top of these Packers. And they do a fantastic job, I think, of just like really, I don't know, like they limit the explosive plays downfield. I think that's what the Lions would love to do. I think that's what Ben Johnson wants to scheme up. I think they're so good. They're going to have their opportunities, but I still think that the Lions, either in a close one, because they've had some close games in their division. They had that close game against the Bears, for instance, on Thanksgiving, but they find the way to win. Like they do make the right decisions. They manage the clock well, and that's going to ultimately lead to the best results. And I still think that like there is a part of Jordan Love that's just going to gift you one. Like he just has this turnover thing this year that he hasn't been able to shake it at all, especially with the interceptions. He's got like one bad one every other game. So I don't know that against this Lions defense, for instance, that he's going to be completely clean there either. I think he's going to make enough mistakes that the Lions are going to be able to hold on and win this one.
Well, and speaking of Jordan Love and his ability to throw interceptions, that is one of the props that I put on the Beat the Book post for today. Jordan Love did have one interception in that last game against the Lions. And as you said, Jordan Love just throws the ball without fear. And I think you do want that quality in your quarterback. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but what that does inevitably lead to is, you're going to end up giving the ball to the defense because, maybe you're chasing a really long yardage play. You're just not as stingy with your decisions of, whether or not to sling it. And Jordan Love is one of those guys where, he's going to take a shot at the deep ball if he thinks he's got a chance at completing that pass. So definitely love Jordan Love to throw at least one interception today. That is paying minus 168 right now odds on FanDuel. But I wanted to focus more on the Lions run game right now because they have, in my opinion, wide and far, like the best running attack in the NFL, just with this two-headed monster of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. These are guys that are starting caliber running backs like on any other team pretty much. And you've got two of them that you get to use interchangeably. Typically it's like, Gibbs gets a drive, then Montgomery gets the next drive, then Gibbs, or maybe if one of them gets winded, then they're going to switch it up. But either way, this is how you're consistently getting, 60 plus rushing yard games out of Gibbs and Montgomery. And you take a look at where their lines are right now for rushing in this game. Montgomery is sitting at 57.5. Gibbs is at 65.5. And I'm leaning a little bit more towards Gibbs in terms of like who's going to be kind of like 1A, 1B today. And that doesn't mean like, they're going to start Gibbs, and they're going to like prioritize him. I'm just leaning towards him having the better performance out of the two. If you take a look at Jahmyr Gibbs over his last 5 games, he's had 60 or more rushing yards in each game. So like another one of the picks that's up there is for Jahmyr Gibbs to get 60 plus alternate rushing yards, just lower that line a little bit. It's worth the difference in the price just to give yourself a little bit of extra security. That's a trend that has been pretty prevalent with him. As far as scoring an anytime touchdown, Gibbs is also a guy I love for that. But I will be honest, when I was gone in California for Thanksgiving, they do have the prize picks out there. It's daily fantasy, so it's like not technically sports betting, even though
technically considered a game of skill, even though it's the same.
It's 100% sports betting.
Yeah.
It's 100%. It's player props. So I happened to bet on Sam Laporta on Thanksgiving to get a touchdown, and he did really right by me. So there's a part of me that does like Sam Laporta to get some opportunity in this one. Keon, outside of Jahmyr Gibbs, is there anyone in particular that you see as pretty likely to get a touchdown in this game?
That's a great question, because I think that in this particular game, when you're looking at both of these teams, I think throwing the football is not going to be particularly easy. So normally I'm really high on Jameson Williams. I don't feel great about Jameson Williams going up against this secondary. I'm looking actually because someone asked on the text line if Josh Jacobs was healthy. So I was trying to see if we could get any last second information on Josh Jacobs, because if Josh Jacobs is playing, I would say Josh, because I think the running games for both of these teams are going to be huge. From what I'm seeing, it looks like Josh Jacobs is good. Yeah. So that, if that answers your question, Robert, from Surprise, appreciate that. But yeah, like I think Josh Jacobs would be the guy that I would look at for Green Bay. Just in terms of him being able to get something going. Green Bay relies on him. A lot of their offense is run to set up the pass to a degree. I mean, they're perfectly comfortable coming out slinging it if they think that that's an option. But when you look at what the Lions have been able to do, the turnovers that they've been able to force in that secondary, I forget who it was that texted earlier this week that talked about how good Kirby Joseph has been. He leads the league in interceptions. He's got 9 of them this year. Like that. That's going to be a team I don't know that you want to come out testing that secondary early. I think you establish the run, and that's going to be really good for Josh Jacobs.
So I'm really excited to see this game later on tonight. Again, that will be here on 1580 The Fanatic. You can check out that broadcast after the Daily Blender, which comes on right after this show. And Keon, I think because of that discussion that we had segment one.
That's definitely, this is a short segment now, so we'll have to run away. We'll come back. We might get to a little bit more NFL stuff, but we really want to take a look at the Suns. They're back in action tonight. Devin Booker has some juicy player props out there, so maybe we'll take a look at that, and Dylan will explain why and break that down for us. That's going to be Beat the Book right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-8695. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-8695. That's 800-575-8695. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Sports betting apps are not created equal. Dylan Cohen from Beat the Book here to talk about the Sport Trade advantage. With higher payouts, Sport Trade is the ultimate sports betting experience. Sport Trade is the first sports betting app that gives you the option to see the odds expressed as probabilities, and it's changing in-game betting forever. If it's easier to understand 52% probability of winning versus minus 108 odds, then Sport Trade is for you. With this percent odds feature, cashing out now makes much more sense. As the win probability changes, so does the value of your bet. And if you're an experienced bettor and prefer American odds, you'll get pricing closer to minus 106 versus the normal minus 110, coupled with instant in-play betting. No more spinny wheels. So download Sport Trade today to see the difference and beat the book. Use promo code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet you place in your first week. Terms apply.
Sport Trade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
AZ Preps 365, your source for all the news, info, highlights, and more. Athlete news and interviews. Talk with coaches. Keep you up to date with the changes, moves, upcoming events, and more. AZ Preps 365, Arizona's ultimate prep sports show. If you miss a minute, you miss a lot. AZ Preps 365, Saturday mornings 8 till 10 on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic, and always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention, which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million+ products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them, the right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Your home for sports.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
So before we move on, Dylan, got a question from Ringless Joe on the text line. He's been chomping at the bit about this. He actually texted in about this game yesterday, and I was like, wait, hold on. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I'll come back and ask the question tomorrow. Ringless Joe wants to know, what is a good exact margin bet for the Packers and Lions game? Do you have a
exact margin? God, that's
I'm hoping what you mean is like a spread that you're
no. So
like an alternate spread that you feel.
No. Exact margin is like you call the exact margin of victory, and that is a bet. It's a risky bet.
It's a very risky bet. I don't know that that's one that I'm ever comfortable taking.
Trying to find the I'm on FanDuel right now trying to find where they have that.
Because of course you want to make sure that there's a payout that's worth it for whatever you think it's going to be.
Look, I mean, let's just be clear. Like, it's not too different from just like literally saying, get the exact score right, or not score, but like get one team's like exact score right.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is the same thing, because what you're saying is, whether you think the score is, say you think the margin's going to be 7, whether you think the score is 40-33 or 30-23, you're saying that the margin's going to be 7. When it comes to exact margin things, I tend to avoid those personally.
I like margin bets, but I mean, personally, I play the ones where they're like open-ended, where it's kind of similar to a spread in that, I need you to win
by at least
11 plus,
or more. Yeah.
Or more. I mean, there are some scenarios where like 1 to 10, where you take a range, but in that case, that's a range. It's not
if it's 7, I'm right. If it's 10, I'm right. But
Ringless Joe, let's go with 8.
Let's go with 8.
Let's go with 8, man. Keep my fingers crossed for you.
Yeah. For entertainment purposes only, Ringless Joe. Just understand that this is you're taking
that's a shot in the dark,
hands.
my friend.
He's saying some places are single point ones, but the ones I'm talking about are 1 to 6, 7 to 12, and 13 to 18.
7 to 12. There you go. Easy. No, but honestly, I mean that was what I said in the segment before is, I think the Lions are good to cover at least by a touchdown. They won that first game by 10. So 7 to 12. Now you're getting a little bit of an extra
and is
bumper
this game,
just in case.
Are these two teams different enough between now and then? Like the Packers are playing like roughly as good as they were then. The Lions are playing like roughly as good as they were then. Like, I don't know that enough's changed in this game that margin's going to be different this time.
Right. And I mean, do the Lions have it in them to just completely steamroll the Packers? Like, sure, but I do not see this being that kind of a game.
I doubt that a lot, just because I think Matt LaFleur genuinely is a good coach. I think that Jordan Love, for the most part is playing really good football. Like his numbers aren't that different from Jared Goff's when you put him side by side. And then the defense for the Packers deserves a lot of credit and love too. So like these two teams are very similar. I just think that the Lions are doing it at a higher level.
Completely on the same page with you there. Let's jump over to the Phoenix Suns, because there is something very important that I think everyone needs to be aware of when you're looking to bet on this game tonight. The Suns are taking on the Pelicans in New Orleans, and yes, we are without Kevin Durant. The Pelicans, for much of this season, have been very, very just heavily injured, working with a pretty depleted roster. The injuries are finally starting to decrease for them. They got DeJounte Murray back. They got CJ McCollum back. They are expected to have Brandon Ingram and Herb Jones ready to go tonight. So they will be without Zion Williamson. They will be without Jose Alvarado. They will be without Jordan Hawkins. They're not completely full strength, but they're starting to, come back together. So with that being said, injuries on both sides going on here. Devin Booker is going to be the guy to back today, particularly on the points and the scoring. If you happen to check out my podcast episode today, 6 Point Play, where I share all of my best NBA betting advice, you can get that on Apple and Spotify, by the way. Devin Booker to score in this game tonight, that is the play to make. And if you pull up his line on points right now, it's sitting at 28.5. We've talked a little bit on this show in the past about within the NBA, there is a thing where certain players have a tendency to have big performances against specific organizations. And why that is specifically, I don't have the perfect answer for you. It's just something that's been observed for a long enough period of time that it is worth betting on. It's done right by us. We know every single time Giannis Antetokounmpo plays the Chicago Bulls, you bet on his points. We know that when LeBron James goes to Miami, you play his points. And the third one in this is when Devin Booker goes to the city of New Orleans, you play his points. The last 2 times Devin Booker has played a basketball game in New Orleans, he scored 52 points each time, 104 points in his last 2 games against the New Orleans Pelicans when they play in New Orleans. Now, they have played one other time since then. He had, I believe it was 25 points in a home game. But now, just with the conditions of this matchup, no Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, you've got no Zion Williamson.
And you do have Beal, which I think is huge, because when he didn't have Beal and Durant, he had less space to operate, and we had worse Devin Booker outcomes during that stretch without both of them. But if you have Beal, then Devin's still the main guy, but Beal gives him a little bit more room to work.
Exactly. It takes a little bit of pressure off of you. And, look, there's variables that have changed year over year. Luckily, when you actually make these comparisons to last season, the Pelicans have a very, very similar team to what they had last season. So, it's not something where it's like, oh, this is a completely new, different group of players. The Suns are a very similar team to last season. We've got a different coach. We play a little bit of a different game. But if Devin Booker has got it going tonight, that does not mean that we're not going to give him the ball. I mean, the guy's already gone off for 2 40-point games already this season. Look for Devin.
Isn't he? He's got a streak, I think, of 4 games of 25 points or more.
Oh, he's been scoring lately.
Yeah,
and I mean, those are games where Kevin Durant's also playing too. And he's got to share the ball.
The trend is good. The trend is good.
The conditions are very good right now for Devin Booker to have another big game in New Orleans. And don't forget, the head coach of the New Orleans Pelicans, that's Willie Green. He used to be the assistant coach here in Phoenix when we had that magical year, where we made it all the way to the NBA Finals and then didn't finish the job. But Willie Green, he knows at least Devin Booker pretty well, pretty intimately. They've been in practices. They've talked smack to each other. I'm pretty sure what happens, honestly, is Willie must be talking smack to Devin as soon as this game gets going, and he's literally causing this to happen. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on.
Maybe Willie should just back off a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
So Devin Booker's line on points tonight, like I said, 28.5. If you want to take him for 30 or more, completely solid move. That's paying plus 110. I would even go as far as to recommend a ladder on his points. You can take him at 35 plus for plus 230. You can take him at 40 plus for 5-1 odds right now, plus 500, 45 plus 11-1, 50-point game, 18-1. I'm not saying put your full bankroll on 18-1, but these are props that believe it or not, they've got a shot at winning tonight, and they're worth a little bit of a sprinkle. So, focus most of your funds towards the 30-point end of that spectrum, but, sprinkle a little bit further down that ladder. You'll be surprised, when Devin actually comes through, and who knows? I mean, by halftime, he could have 40 points. I mean, we've seen it. I know one of those 52-point games last season, he only played 3 quarters. So, if we're going to go kind of along this school of thought, we're going to say, oh, well, this is the kind of game Devin Booker's going to have. Well, guess what? In those 52-point games, the Suns ended up defeating the Pelicans by 14 points each time. So, you want to go ahead and jump over to the spread here. It's -2. You can play that spread at -2. You could ladder that out as well. Look for a dominant Suns performance tonight, led by Devin Booker with a big scoring game. That's all I got, Keon.
And there you have it. That'll do it for us on the text line. Robert from Surprise saying that and he's talking about the Lions and the Packers, will be playing indoors this time, so they may score more points. I think that would be true, but that would be true for both teams. And I think that they're really good, man. Like, I think that these defenses are quality. And if you remember in the last game, Packers and Lions, Kirby Joseph, the pick 6 is what actually gave that game the 10-point separation that it wound up having. So once again, if you want to check these bets, make sure you go to 1580thefanatic.com, click on the Beat the Book logo, check that out. You can see the picks for the day if you want to hear that again. We've got the podcast going up in just a little bit, the 6-point play, and we've got the Daily Blender coming up next right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
I'm Bridget Condon with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence is expected to have surgery in the coming weeks